Today you will be solving quadratic equations using the quadratic formula. We're going to add, you're going to have a few examples in which you will not be able to solve by factoring, so you'll have to use quadratic formula. Now remember from Algebra 2 there is a song, but our quadratic formula here is in the thinking bubble. And the first thing we want to do is we want to make sure our equation is in standard form and equal to 0. So we want it in that ax squared plus bx plus c equal to 0. So in order to do so, we're going to add the 4x to both sides and subtract the 5. Okay, so we'll bring down the 3x squared. We'll bring down the plus 4x and the minus 5, bring down your equal sign and the 0. The next step is we're going to identify the position of A, B, and C. So we know find A, B, and C. So here notice we have A is 3 because it's attached to the x squared, B is 4, and C is negative 5. Okay. Next step, I would suggest that you find the discriminant b squared minus 4ac, which is the stuff underneath the radical. So 4 squared minus 4 times a, which is 3, times c, which is negative 5. And when we use a calculator to find this, we do get 76. And then our next step is to do the quadratic formula. So we have x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. So we know we'll have our x equals, our opposite of b would be negative 4 plus minus the square root. Now because we've already found b squared minus 4ac in the previous step, we just substitute the 76 underneath the radical. And then that's all over 2 times a, which in this case is 3. Okay, so now from here it just becomes a simplification process. Now remember to break down that radical 76, we do a factor tree. Now because it ends in 6, that means it's an even number, and that means we can divide it by 2. 2 goes into 76 38 times. 38 is an even number, so we can divide that by 2 as well, 2 and 19. Now for square root, we need 2 of the same number. So notice we have 2 2's. So when we simplify, x equals negative 4 plus minus 2 square root 19 all over 6. Okay, and then I'm going to ask myself, what number goes into negative 4, 2, and 6? Hopefully you recognize you can divide all those by 2. So x equals negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 19 all over 3. And that is your final answer. If we look at letter B, we're going to do the same process. First question, does the equation equal 0? In this case, no. So we're going to add the 1 to the other side. So 9x squared minus 6x plus 1 equals 0. Now we're going to identify A, B, and C. A is 9, B is negative 6, and C is 1. Remember to find the discriminant next. So b squared minus 4ac. So negative 6 squared minus 4 times 9 times 1, and that gives us actually 0. Okay. Now we're going to plug into our quadratic formula. So x equals the opposite of b, 6, plus or minus the square root of 0 divided by 2 times 9. Okay, and we should hopefully recognize that the square root of 0 is just 0. So x equals 6 plus or minus, oh no plus or minus, I don't need that because the square root of 0 is 0, over 18, which reduces to 1 over 3. That's it. If we look at C, notice our equation already equals 0, which is great. So we can go through and identify A, B, and C. So A is 7, B is 0, and C is negative 4. So remember, I'm thinking in my brain, ax squared plus bx plus c. Well, because there is no x to the first power in our quadratic equation, the b value is just 0. And that is a common mistake that is easily made. Now we're ready to do our discriminant, b squared minus 4ac. So we'll do 0 squared minus 4 times a, which is 7, times c, which is negative 4. And when we simplify, we do get 112. Now we plug into our quadratic formula. X equals negative b, negative 0, plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, which we found to be 112, divided by 2 times a, which is 7. Now, just like we did before, we're going to do a factor tree for 112. If it's an even number, we can divide it by 2. 2 goes into 112 56 times. 56, we know that's 8 and 7, which breaks into 2 and 4, which breaks into 2's. Now, remember to come out of the radical sign. We have to circle partners. So I have a pair of 2's here and a pair of 2's here. So x equals 0 plus or minus 2 times the square root of 7 all over 14, or x equals 0 plus minus 4 square root 7 over 14. So now we're going to ask ourselves, okay, I have a 4 outside the radical and I have a 14 in the denominator. Is there something we can divide those two numbers by? And we can divide them both by 2. So we'll have plus or minus 2 square root the 7 over 7. The end. Here I would like you to take a couple minutes and try these 2 example U-tries. Okay, so hopefully for A, you recognize to move the 3x over to the left side. And then when you find your discriminant, hopefully you found to be 49. We remember the square root of 49 is 7, and we don't write our answer. Every semester I will have someone that just writes their answer like the 3 plus minus 7 over 2. That's not simplified. You have to give me the 2 numeric answers, 5 and negative 2. And then for B, hopefully you recognize to either move the 4x squared to the right side or move the 2x plus 7 to the left side. And when you do so, you do get 4x squared minus 2x minus 7 equal to 0. When you find the discriminant, you do get 116, which is broken down in the factor tree off to the right. When you plug and reduce into quadratic formula, you do have x equals 2 plus minus 2 square root 29 all over 8. The 2's and the 8's are divisible by a 2, so our final answer, x equals 1 plus or minus the square root of 29 all over 4. Yay, we can do practice. The end.